Hey guys, Almin here. I'm going to be doing a video explaining the basics of the decode step. Previously you saw the fetch step, and we're just going to jump right to it so we don't waste any time. Previously in my last video you saw we had a pre-decode buffer at the end of the fetch cycle. Pre-decode buffer. And as you saw, this kind of sorts out what instruction is going to be going to which decode unit. So just to label out some decode units, you have there's going to be two in this explanation, as there is usually more than two decode units in modern architectures. But just a quick note, AMD and Intel have different ways of tackling the decode step. AMD has something called a uniform approach, and Intel has something called a dynamic approach. Now, something I must stress is that neither is better than the other. Now, in AMD's uniform approach, you have general purpose, good quality, good robust. Basically, all the decode units are the same. They're robust. I really can't think of any good way to kind of explain them and differentiate them, because they're kind of they're good. They aren't great at really doing very long instructions very quickly, but they can do them. So what they are, basically, they're just general purpose decode units. They don't have any special name. While Intel's is dynamic, which would mean they have complex decoders. In most Intel architectures, you only have one complex decoder, and then you also have simple decoders. Complex decoders can do really big instructions really fast. Sorry about that. You can do really big instructions really fast, while simple decoders are basically only meant for small instructions. So they can't really do a very complex instruction. Again, neither approach is better than the other. So let's kind of let's kind of figure out what the decode does. So I'm just going to draw out two instructions here. This one's kind of long. Oh man, that is really long. That's okay. So one is extremely simple. One is just 1 plus A, and then one is kind of complex. Now, in AMD's approach, basically the second the pre-decode buffer gets an instruction to code, it just sends it to the next free decode unit. Whilst in AMD's approach, you'd get simple instructions and then get sent to simple decodes. Usually there's multiples. You'd send it to simple decodes, and if you had a complex instruction like this, it would get sent to a complex decode. Now, to kind of figure out as to where the strength in the dynamic and the uniform approaches lie, let's say you have a program that has a lot of complex instructions. AMD's approach would be better because in Intel's architectures, you usually only have one complex decoder. So if that complex decoder is busy doing one instruction, it's if you just keep piling and throwing instructions at it, it can't really do complex. If you have extremely complex instructions, it's going to take more than one cycle to decode them, and it'll get backed up and it'll be behind. Meanwhile, AMD's general purpose decoders, you can just decode, as soon as one becomes free, it decode the next one, and then you have a higher chance of a free decode unit, even though they're a little bit slower. So it's a better approach. While if you're in a program that has a mixture of them, a mixture of complex and simple instructions, then I guess Intel's is better, because you can do a complex instruction really fast whilst you have simple instructions decoding very quickly. If all you have is a lot of simple instructions, it really could go either way. It really doesn't matter. So let's kind of figure out what a decode unit does. A decode unit on its own basically plans out, and it kind of sorts out micro ops, or I just call them operations. And what operation is basically a step in an execution that an execution unit has to take. So it takes an instruction, and then it counts out how many operations have to be done, what they are, in what order they have to be done, and if there's any instructions that have to be applied to it. So let's do this one. Let's say we're a decode unit. I am a decode unit. I am a simple decode unit, or in AMD's purpose, I am just a general purpose decode unit. I get instruction 1 plus A. What is this? It's an addition. What is it? It's one operation. all it is one step, and all it takes is one and then that operand. So it's one operation that adds one and this operand. That's it. Now let's say I'm a complex decoder. I get this really big honking instruction. What is this? Over here you have an addition. Over here you have a division. Over here you have a multiplication, and another division, and another addition, and then another division. Let's say in our CPU texture it takes one operation to do each of these. So you have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 6 operations. So this is 6 operations. Here's what they are. You have an addition of 1 plus A, and then a division of those, add B, and then a multiplication of those. Or sorry, actually switch these around. My bad. You have a division of 4 divided by C, and then you times these two things, and then you add 1 to it, and then you divide all that by H. You know, we just decoded some instructions. We just decoded some instructions as to, you know, we figured out what the instruction is, what all the steps are, how many steps are, what you do with them, which variables are where, you know, what fixed units are where, etc., etc. Yeah. So those are the decode units. Now over here we have something, I'm going to use the word special. It's not actually what it is. It's not really special. We have something called a microcode engine, which deals with instruction sets. Some example of instruction sets would be like AVX, SSE, MMX, FMA, BMI. We're gonna explain we're gonna do an example of FMA. Basically, what instruction sets are shortcuts to do very complex instructions very quickly in less micro operations than they would originally usually need. Now, what microcode and instruction sets actually are, what their technical term for it is programmable execution. It's basically when a programmer programs how execution is going to be done. So not a programmer, though, somebody who writes their software. It's somebody who writes the instruction set, and they can use that instruction set to quickly do more complex instructions for other programmers to take advantage of. So let's say let's do an example. The FMA. FMA instruction stands for fuse, multiply, add. AMD Bulldozer and PileDriver has an FMA4 instruction. And Intel's Haswell just came out with an FMA3 instruction. FMA3 and FMA4 are equivalent. They're different, but they're the same performance. So, what is an FMA? Let's say you get an instruction that is A times B plus C. What do we have in here? We have a multiplication and an addition. That's 2 megaops, right? Well, actually, with FMA, we can actually just turn that into one operation. Because the instruction set in here, it's programmed in a way that the person who wrote the instruction set figured out how you can actually you can fuse a multiply and an addition together. Now an example of this would be, what's 2 times 2 plus 2? That's 6. Okay, what's 2 times 3? That's 6. But 2 times 2 plus 2, that's 2 instructions. But 2 times 6, that's just one instruction. That's just one operation, and it's still the same work. Now it's kind of don't say that's the only way that FMA comes up. It does come up in more complex ways, but again, the purpose of the microcode engine and instruction sets is you take much more complex, or at least more than one operation instruction, and you break it down into very simple operations or less of them. Sometimes it's, you're taking 2 instructions or 2 operations to break it down into one, like an FMA. Sometimes you're taking very, 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 very large multiplications, or very, very, very large, very complex instructions like AVX and SSE and MMX, and you're breaking it down into, less operations. So that's what the micro engine is. It's like a shortcut to kind of make execution easier. And we already explained the decode units. And at the end of the decode, we have something called a ROB. A reorder buffer. Now this is actually more part of the execution more part of the execution step, and I'm gonna explain that in the next video. But this is basically the decode step. You know, you get your pre-decode buffer. It looks at the instruction and says, oh, this is complex, or oh, this is simple, or oh, this can be done with instruction sets. It kind of sorts everything out. It says it to the appropriate decode unit, and then the decode units, either decode or the micro engine, applies an instruction set to that instruction, and then they all go to the reorder buffer. So, you know, that's basically the decode step. So I hope you learned a lot. If you did, like the video and subscribe. If you have any questions, send me a PM or comment, or you know, any other way of getting a hold of me. And hope you liked it. If you have any suggestions, go right ahead and suggest that. And yeah, hope you have a good day. So thanks, guys. See you in the next video, which is the execution step. And bye.